Welcome back to another episode of TimeOut with the Sports Doctor podcast. And this week, we got a solo episode. I've had a lot of great and entertaining guests lately, but I've truly missed the opportunity to just sit down and share with you guys, to share with the audience. And, I would first like to just thank you, especially to the day ones. It's hard to believe that within, we are now entering the 18th month of this podcast, which is almost unbelievable. But, thank you for all those who've been there since the first episode, and you know who you are, who've stuck with me through all the ups and downs, all the lessons learned. And also thank you for those who have joined along later, so this is the beginning. Hey, welcome aboard. You got a lot of catching up to do, but glad that you're here. And I'm glad that you're a part of this family. It's truly a podcast family. This is not me just here lecturing or talking. Simply, we collaborate together. It's been so many collaborations over this last year and a half, especially over the last really year. But just really glad because you all add value to what we do here on this podcast. And, as we go into the Thanksgiving week, and especially during these times now with rising inflation and looming recession fears, the most affordable thing and gift that we can give this holiday season is to give thanks.
Are you interested in real estate? Are you tired of hearing about all the money that your friends and colleagues are making from their investments, but you don't know where to start? Don't worry, I got you. We are teaming up with Dr. Ronnie Shalev and Shawin Properties to equip you with the tools you need to feel empowered about your investments. So how do you get involved? Do these three things. First, go to my website at Dr.Derrick, thesportsdr.com, and click on the sponsor link for Shawin Properties. This will give you access to a free webinar as well as the ability to have a discovery call with Dr. Ronnie Shalev. Also follow her on social media and stay tuned for more helpful tips coming at you on Money Mondays. Now, back to the episode.
Okay, why not give thanks? It's free, right? And I've learned that being thankful and being grateful for where you are or for the distance you've traveled, it's one of the most important lessons that I've learned just in life in general. And I've done a lot of growing, a lot of really growing right in front of your eyes on this microphone, behind this microphone. And this podcast has continued to grow. This year has been definitely a year of growth. And I'll kind of recap some of the things that we're doing differently now than from what we were doing this time last year. So as I mentioned, as we go into the holiday season, just really want to thank a lot of people for how you contributed to this podcast. I'm thankful for the growth, as I mentioned, in multiple phases of my life. On this podcast, we're now, I have a virtual assistant, which I added about 6 months ago, which really freed up a lot of time for me, especially going through this busy football season, to be able to still give out quality content and to be able to not have to skip episodes. I feel one of the main things that I've done, and just kind of not only on this podcast, is consistency. And that's truly been my word of focus for 2022, not just in a podcast, but in my daily walk, in my family, on my job. It's just to be consistent and to continue to show up. Someone told me once before as a podcaster that you could be the most consistent thing in someone's life. And that was a big statement, but it's sometimes a true statement. The fact that they know every Monday, 3 a.m. or whatever time this podcast will be on their favorite device so they can listen to it. And hopefully we're able to share or shine a light on something, or, maybe even shine a light on a dark place that someone's going through. So consistency is one thing that I feel has been one of the recipes for success of this podcast. I've shared a couple of times, on pod, that this podcast has continued to be ranked in the medical division on Good Pods, and not necessarily because I have the best content, but because I've been very consistent. So, as you know, the theme of this podcast is where life, sports, and medicine intersect. That's truly who I am as the sports doctor as Dr. Derrick Burgess, as an orthopedic surgeon, as a husband, as a father, as a mentor, and as a team physician. And, truly this year, if I had to describe 2022, I would say that this has been amazingly unpredictable as far as a year. If you asked me this time last year what I would be doing right now, never would I have predicted that many things that I'm doing would have come to fruition. And I'm just going to kind of break this episode into the three things that we always talk about. Anytime you see my posts, they end with hashtag life, hashtag sports, hashtag medicine, hashtag timeout with the sports doctor. Because truly, those things are kind of pillars of my life, right? So the pillars of this podcast is to help you strengthen your mindset, help you grow your assets, and help you to achieve, first define what success is for you, and then to achieve whatever level of success that you deem necessary for your life. So, I encourage people not to take on the image of others. Don't take on whatever your family defines as success, but to strive to define what success means for you. So let's talk about life. So I'm thankful in my life, number one, for my family, for my wife, for my kids, 3 beautiful children who all play a role in this podcast. Everyone's embraced it. They always are interested in who's the next guest going to be. My daughter, who is my executive producer, always there to help, especially with editing these videos and, helping me come up with creative content. And then, my wife, who is a pediatric dentist and just recently celebrated having 1 year open in practice. And you see one of the sponsors is Sparkling Smiles Pediatric Dentistry. She's now been open for 1 year. Really proud of her. The lessons I've learned just as innocent bystander have been very valuable. Seeing the amount of work that it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, especially as a solo practitioner. But I'm just really proud of ground that she's covered in a year and how she continues to push herself, push her staff to achieve greatness and to help people. And then, health. We've lost a lot in this last year. A lot of family members, several family members. I'm sure everyone can think about something that's been lost. If it's not life, it might be income. It's just many people are going through tough times, but I'm very thankful for my health and then just personal growth, not only with all the things that I've been trying to juggle this last year, from this podcast to starting on my main job, going to a remote location, starting that clinic, and then boom, earlier this year, something that I mentioned, in 2020, I reached out to try to be involved with Jackson State sports. And lo and behold, early 2022, that opportunity presented itself. Truthfully, I kind of shelved the idea of doing it, but when it presented itself, I accepted it without really knowing how it was going to work out. And here we are now, kind of going through the last couple of weeks of the football season, and we've been able to, now notice I said we, because it's not only me, my wife, my kids, we've been able to successfully navigate it. And this has been truly a blessing to be able to be a part of Jackson State University, Coach Prime, and what I call is a movement in HBCU sports. And I've had a front row seat. I've been able to be there every step of the way. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity. Just thank you for all the people that I've met along the way. Thank you for all those who believed in this dream years ago. Many laughed, but few believed. And I'm really thankful for those. So let's go to sports. As I mentioned, with JSU, being able to travel with the football team has been something that's really stretched me professionally, but also made me be very focused as far as this podcast. Before the season started, I knew I had to grind. So in June and July, I interviewed a lot, and we were up like 8 weeks before the football season started. That was just preparation, because I wanted to still be able to deliver content despite the fact that I might be gone all weekend sometimes, but I wanted to still be able to have that podcast episode ready to deliver on Monday morning. So And then also, one main area of growth, I started out this podcast interviewing many people. I will say that this is probably one of the most diverse podcasts, not only from a racial and gender perspective, but from different specialties that have been represented on this podcast, from lawyers to physicians of all sorts, to nurse practitioners, to athletes, entrepreneurs. We can pretty much run the gambit. And some people will say, well, how can you interview all these different types of people and still deliver a solid message? It's because I always stick to the pillars of, as I mentioned, strengthening your mindset, assets, and success. And I've truly learned that I can truly interview, I feel, anyone and pull these pillars out of them. And I've learned that I can learn from anyone, no matter how young or old. I think my age range has been from 92 or 93 when I interviewed my grandfather at the time to like a 19, 20-year-old. So, and all in between. And some of the most successful podcasts have been from the youngest to the oldest. So that's one thing that I'm really happy about, that I've been able to interview people and share their stories and still be able to pull out small nuggets and help people. It's kind of learning gems along the way.
The Sabre training bat is like no other training bat you've ever used before. So the purpose of the Sabre training bat with its modified barrel is so that you can perfectly sequence and get behind the ball, getting the bat on plane sooner, creating less miss hits, more line drives, higher batting averages, and more exit velocity. The Sabre training bat is the #1 training bat on the market. Sabre Bats, the training bat that's going to take you to your best swing.
And then from the medical piece, as I've already mentioned, as a sports doctor, being able to travel across the United States this year with sporting events, being able to work with one of the largest institutions in the state at the university to be able to help deliver orthopedic care, and as well as still being able to serve in my local community. And I never take it for granted, because the time that I spent on the high school sidelines and working with youth sports opened up the door for where I am now. So, as I'll mention sometimes, there's no steps are wasted. And truthfully, whatever you're going through today, concentrate, hone your skills, and one day it's going to pay off. So those are some of the things that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for, like, as I mentioned, each and every one of you who continue to contribute. Some of the things that I've introduced this year is, number one, as I mentioned, got a virtual assistant. I launched a YouTube channel, which has now been going on for about 6 months and has been a blessing. I've been able to start sponsorships. So some collaborations, some paid sponsorships, being able to work with companies. Shout out to Sabre Bats, shout out to Sparkling Smiles Pediatric Dentistries, Zero Gravity Skin and their laser products. That's been in one company they've been able to work with, as well as working with Dr. Ronnie Shalev and Shawin Properties, introducing to you Money Mondays, which we've been doing for about the last 3 months. And this is truly just a culmination of my journey over the last couple of years. Many other topics that we discussed about real estate and investing, if you had to set me down with a piece of paper to try to define these terms 2.5, 3 years ago, I would have flunked it 100%. But now I'm at least able to have these conversations. I still have a lot of learning to do myself, but I am happy to be able to share this information that many people can go a lifetime and never learn about how to really leverage your finances and leverage your connections with people to be able to achieve success, to be able to achieve financial freedom, and to be able to pass along generational wealth, which is something that many of my listeners are first generation, whatever, lawyers, doctors, athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs. So I can speak personally. I know these money talks were something that were almost taboo and definitely not really discussed in my home. So I'm very happy to be able to share these topics. And one thing that I'm also thankful for, and one book that has not only been transformational for me, but transformational for my whole family, is the Go Giver book. And I just want to encourage all of you, it's a very short listen or read, to read that book. I'll share the information in the show notes. The Go Giver, a little story about powerful business idea by Bob Burge and John David Mann. And thank you, Lisa Hilton, who told me about this book probably about a year ago. And when I listened to the book, it was, as I mentioned, very transformational for me. So I went back and listened to it with my kids. And, now when we go, and the theme of the book is not about what you receive, it's about how much you give. And giving more value than you receive is always just kind of the name of the game. So I'll give you just a brief synopsis, but I really encourage you to read it. So many times in life when we want to be successful, people tell you you have to be a go-getter, right? You got to be aggressive. You have to go out and take what you want. But this book is the opposite. More important than being a go-getter is being a go-giver. So I'm going to leave you with the 5 laws of stratospheric success that were defined in this book. The first one, the law of value. So your true worth is how much more you give others in value than you receive in payment. So that's your true worth. Number 2, the law of compensation. Your income depends on how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So if you want to make more, you need to serve more, better serve more people. The law of influence is determined by how abundantly you place others' interests first. Stop keeping score and stop all the 50-50 relationships. Some of the relationships you have need to be you giving it to others without receiving anything in return. The law of authenticity. The most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And that's one thing about podcasting, about sharing, is many times you can be kind of intimidated by your own voice and the fear of what are people going to say about you. That's can paralyze people and keep people from, writing books or doing podcasts. But the law of authenticity, the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And then the law of reciprocation. The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. It is important to be able to receive from others and not block your blessings. And that's one that I really have to work on because I love giving to people, but many times when people want to give to me, I can block my own blessings by not being open to receive. So those, like I mentioned, I'm just very thankful, and I hope to encourage other people to share during this holiday season with others that you're thankful for. Pick up the phone, send a text, and let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you. I'm happy to be affiliated with you. I love you. So that's some of the things that I wanted to share with you, as well as just leave you with this one scripture, 2 Timothy 1:7, that reads, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but a power, love, and self-discipline." So as we enter, into this last month of the year, many people will give up and just say, hey, I'll start afresh in 2023. But what we're going to do on this podcast, and you'll see with some of these upcoming episodes, we're going to push through the month of December. I thought about some of the episodes that as I was recording them, I was saying, man, this is going to be great to launch 2023. Everybody's going to be focused on their New Year's resolutions, and we're going to talk about these topics and get everybody off to a good start. But then I thought that would be pretty much me being a hypocrite. If I'm always pushing you on this podcast to live your best life and to be a high achiever and to achieve success, then why wait until 2023 rolls in? So we're going to talk about topics that might make you a little uncomfortable in the month of December. Weight loss, financial security, savings, investing. These probably aren't things that you're going to want to hear about during the most expensive time of the year. However, that's what we're going to talk about. And if it makes you a little uncomfortable, then that's great, because that's what we want to do. We want to kind of shake the audience a little bit to get you really focused going into 2023, so that when you make those resolutions and make those changes, that you will have the tools needed to be able to achieve whatever you're trying to set out to do. So happy Thanksgiving, enjoy family. Hopefully you'll be able to spend some time away from the daily grind and just enjoy being with family. And hey, we're going to keep pushing until the final clock rings. All right. Peace.
Thank you for continuing to support this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't done so, subscribe so you continue to get the updated episodes. Until later, peace.
Time out with the sports doctor. Keep our head right in the game, we ain't never stopping. You are now tuned in, trust you don't wanna miss. This is where life, sports, and medicine